to all the folks who are listening in. My name is Nguyen Tran, and I'm the Assistant Director of the California History Social Science Project. I'm here with Virginia Nguyen, who I will ask to introduce herself in just a moment. And you're tuning in to what we have, or spotlighting is our inaugural year of the Educator Fellowship. That is a partnership between the California History Social Science Project and California Revealed. So first off, Virginia, who are you? What is it that you do in the classroom?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to share with you the work that I've been doing with California Revealed and the California History Social Science Project over the course of the last year. I am a high school history teacher, and I have been teaching now for 20-something years, I think 21 years. I'm kind of losing track, but I definitely have a love and a heart for what we're about to talk about and share with you.
That's amazing. It's 20 plus years and you're so excited and you actually have a youthful glow. So at the very beginning of the year. So thank you for being with us. Okay, so you have been in a classroom, high school teacher. What are some of the subjects that you teach?
This year, I mostly teach modern world history, but I've taught all of the high school requirements. I've taught world, US, government or government, I guess we call it in high school, AP, US. I haven't taught econ yet. And just saying that out loud, I feel like I'm jinxing myself. But yeah, so I've taught all the histories, and I'm super excited to think about where history is going, where social studies is going, especially with the new mandated ethnic studies and what that means for the expanding of the historical narrative and skills that it'll bring our students.
And not to put words in your mouth, but this leads to the second question of like the Educator Fellowship. Was there something about these new possibilities in history education, specifically ethnic studies, that led you to apply for the fellowship? And what was it that what stood out for you about this opportunity?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things that stood out. Well, I want to first of all give a shout out to the California History Social Science Project, because I have been an really appreciative user since I first started teaching. And it was because I already had my own relationship with California Social Science, History Social Science Project that led me there. Being an Asian woman, going into history is really intimidating, especially when you don't actually see yourself in it. So that alone is a challenge. And it took resources like California History Social Science Project to show me what it would look like to have history that is really reflective of myself and my identity, along with the identity of the diverse student population I've had the pleasure of serving in throughout my career. So first of all, it was aligned. It was an organization that I had already had a relationship with, that was aligned with what it was that I valued, and also had already served a lot of the needs and anticipated my needs as an educator that led me here. The other part of it is that, we have had a racial reckoning in the last few years, and part of that racial reckoning is the need for a history that's more honest and open, and a history in which we empower the voices of our most marginalized communities. And being a Vietnamese woman, the daughter of Vietnam War refugees, being and one of the few Asian American history educators, because we make a very, well, first of all, Asian Americans make a very small population of teachers, and then add to that, like, a history teacher is also very rare. I felt like I had a responsibility to use my teaching experience, my passion, and my relationship with or at least my appreciation for the History Social Science Project and what they've already provided me, to give back. And for all those reasons, I felt compelled to apply and bring in, give back to my community the way that I've been lucky enough to receive as well, in hopes that it will continue to inspire other educators, especially educators of color, to speak up, use your identity, use your history, use your voices, and bring that in, because that's really what history is about. It's about our own individual stories, being a part of this bigger story of us.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate that perspective. And that perspective is like what made your application really stand out, because part of the Educator Fellowship was being able to provide an opportunity for teachers to fill a content gap that they see in their classrooms. And so going into the project, what is it that you were hoping to get content-wise for yourself? Like, you had a project. What did you want to do with this project?
So my own, I already shared this, right? I'm the daughter of Vietnamese war refugees, and throughout my high school experience, and along with teaching it, and not just as a student, but as a teacher as well, I had to do my own research and digging in order to find stories that really represented the Vietnamese American experience as I knew it, right? One that had that was beyond the Vietnam War, one that was more inclusive of like, and more really celebratory of what it is to be Vietnamese American. The stories that I, and the way that the history, the more traditional history textbooks and the primary sources and secondary sources that I have access to for my students have really been told from a white lens. And so looking for my own Vietnamese American identity in it is what I was hoping to get out of it, with the support and help of those who have spent their career in how to study history. That part is the part that was very special, because I'm going through this process as a student myself. And that opportunity to learn alongside those that are archivists, those that are dedicated historians, those that are experts to guide me through all of this was such a gift. It was like I get to go back to school again, and I get to at the same time create something that I can share with others, and that I hope other teachers will really find useful.
So let's get into it. For the primary source sets that you created, there are two. The first one is about Vietnamese immigration experience, including resettlement. And then the second one is about identity. And something special that ties both of them in is a graphic novel. You want to talk about like your anchor source for both of them, and sort of the genesis of that, and then where you wanted to go with that as an anchor source for two different types of sources, like that it was thematically, the ability of it thematically to cover two different things that you wanted to get across.
Yes, so I feel so fortunate to live in a time where there are Vietnamese American authors and artists and creatives out there that are telling our story. So going to Tay Bui's book, The Best We Could Do, her graphic novel, it is something that as I read through it, I felt so seen. There are moments where it was very raw. And the beauty of a book like this is not only are we talking about the experience of an individual, but looking at it from the lens of a historian, we are also looking at it as historical text as well, right? So not only do I have something that my fellow colleagues, teaching colleagues in ELA or LLA can use, where they can, and I know that they're doing this, where they're pulling from the graphic novel in order to understand like the human experience. But as a history teacher, I'm able to pull from it and say, here's a primary source that talks about the Vietnamese experience from before the fall of Saigon to resettlement and to establishing your identity as a Vietnamese American. So I thought this was such a great opportunity to really bridge multiple subject areas, really make it interdisciplinary, but also use something that is both a story, but also a historical text at the same time.
So part of your fellowship was creating two source sets. We know that The Best We Could Do was an anchor source for both of them. And then you built a source set of primary sources around that specific or the essential questions that you created for the source set. So the first one was, how does the process of immigration influence one's resettlement experience and identity formation? And what are the lasting impacts of the Vietnam War across the different Vietnamese American generations? Okay, those are really big, heavy hitting questions. And you created a whole body of primary sources that we're excited to share and disseminate for teachers. So don't forget to check click some sort of link when this is posted for those source sets. But can you give us one preview of one source that sort of really resonates with this specific source set on the immigration experience?
Well, first of all, I really want to point out that I had trouble before this finding sources that really spoke to my experience as a Vietnamese American. And it was the introduction to sources like California Revealed that helped expand my access to primary sources. Before this, I was relying a lot on like the Library of Congress, and I know other educators this will resonate, other history educators, this will resonate with you because you're doing the same thing I'm doing. We're looking for primary sources all the time, and we are also trying to look for credible primary sources. So it was a gift in this fellowship to be introduced to California Revealed and see all these vetted access to sources that I hadn't known existed. And one of the sources I found is Asian Women's Program, Ageism Against Women from 1980. And the source is really great because it's an Asian women's programming, and there is recordings from these skits that these Asian women are performing about the Asian American experience. And in it, there is the very beginning, there's this wonderful song that is specifically talking, it's called We Are America, and in it, it's Asian women singing that the different histories that Asians, Korean, South, definitely Chinese, like Japanese, the histories that they've experienced, and then with each time an era they're talking about, they're like, we are America. And I really loved it because then it frames the experience that Vietnamese are coming into, right? We are not coming in as the first Asian group. We are coming in to a country that was already had anti-Asian sentiment. And now we have the Vietnam War also around us. So there's all these like complexities of being Asian American, but also being Vietnamese and Vietnam War refugees. And then add to it, there's this other level of intersectionality with being a woman, which I didn't know I'd end up here. But as I created this California Revealed source set, I found myself curating more and more the point of view of women too, something that is often missing in history in general, but also very much missing in the storytelling of the Vietnam War. And what I learned as I was going through this is so many stories are held by women. So many stories are passed down by women through these oral history traditions and through our culture, through our food, that being able to find the Asian Women's Program was like such a nice way to really center that theme. And I couldn't have gotten there without being a part of this project. You know, I wouldn't have had that growth or realization without the opportunity to dive into so many of these sources as I tried to figure out what I wanted to share with others.
Yeah, and as you were, and I worked as part of the team, the research team and instructional materials team that helped to support you in creating this source set. But even like I'm constantly learning, because even as you were talking, I'm thinking about like what that source spoke to you in terms of it, like the intersectionality of your gender, your ethnicity, and how it works as anti-essentialist. Like not all Asian Americans are the same. Vietnamese people are entering into a long history of anti-Asian hate within the context of war. And so all these sort of things come together to build that complexity. And you highlighted it really well. And how do you think your students are going to respond to something like this? I threw out a bunch of really big SAT words. Like how do you anticipate like teaching this?
Well, First of all, I don't want to forget because I keep telling myself this in my head, but I want to thank the California Revealed and the History Social Science team for supporting me through all this. This was an effort of collaboration and many minds coming together, and many of us all of us committed to really creating that opportunity for like a more inclusive storytelling, a more inclusive access to resources for our educators and then ultimately to our students. And I know because this is what I try to bring into my classroom over the course of the 20 years. I know my students will this resonates with them. You know, when this very personal way of looking at history really resonates with our students. Our students are constantly looking for the individual story in their experiences. So when you are able to break down how moments like this have bigger meaning, our students love that. So I know that they will be drawn to this, definitely, because they're drawn to different versions of this in all kinds of other forms of history and other moments of history that we are learning and studying.
And that's a perfect segue into the second source set, which is about identity. Can you talk about one source within that body of primary sources that speaks to identity in a way that will resonate with your students?
Yes. Again, I did not know that I would go down this path of finding more and more voices from women, but I ended up here. It's another California Revealed source. It's from Monterey County. It's called Letter to My Son, and it is a story from Kim Tran. It is a series of letters that she writes to her sons about her hopes for them. And her hopes are that they remember Vietnam, that that even though they're in America, that they do not forget that there was a war that tore apart Vietnam, and that war is still raging. That war is internally, to hold on to South Vietnam, which doesn't exist anymore, right? It's like that's something that each time I think about it, it makes me sad, although I never got to experience it myself. It's like, you're right, like my parents' country went away. It no longer exists. And my parents grieved that. And I grieve with them out of love for my parents, but I grieve for myself because I don't even know what I lost in that case, you know? So she's saying, please don't forget that there was a devastation that happened. Don't forget our family as in our country. And I think that that's something that I know isn't just about being Vietnamese or South Vietnamese. It's not just about that. It's about being human, and it's about feeling a connection to your past, and it's about feeling different degrees of empathy for those that exist around you, empathy for those that exist in other parts of the world, and then empathy for those of the past. And so I think that letter is so powerful because it brings many levels of empathy out. And I know that would really resonate with our students as well.
So I want to highlight here that this letter was a gift to her sons, and the best we could do was a gift almost between the author and her parents to sort of help heal this confusion around identity and history. We didn't talk about sort of like that this project in itself is your own gift on what it will be upcoming anniversary. So maybe we can end on this point about like these two source sets are very close to your heart as we have a very important upcoming anniversary within the Vietnamese community.
Yes, right. In 2025, it will be the 50th anniversary of Black April, right? That's when the Vietnam War ended and the United States and its allies pulled out. And that for Vietnamese Americans is a really dark day because it's a day that really marks a lot of loss. But for the generation, my generation, where I was, I was born here in the United States, or for folks who, like my husband, immigrated over or were refugees, It is like this like strange world where we feel really lucky to be here in the United States and have a lot of opportunities that we wouldn't have had if we had were still in Vietnam. But then it's also a loss of everything that came before that for our families. And so this source set, and thank you for mentioning it as a gift, because I really think the person that got the most out of it is me, you know, and trying to, it's like I'm healing my younger self, going through high school and trying to learn and see myself. I didn't. And so now as an adult, I've spent my whole life searching for a way to bring that experience to my students so they don't feel like as invisible as I did as a child. And so the real gift is the gift of me able to right what I thought was a wrong in my childhood. And in knowing that the 50th anniversary is coming up, I know that this topic will be big because the Vietnam War and its history has, you know, this like dark cloud over American history. But I want to rewrite that, or at least I want to add to that story. I want to add that there is beauty and joy that that a whole large community feels as the aftermath. And America, like you totally benefited too. In the source set, we talk about Vietnamese food having a lot of impact on the palates of Americans today, right? There are so many Vietnamese American contributions to our American society today in terms of art, fashion, culture, music. You know, I want the 50th anniversary to be an opportunity to celebrate the beautiful diversity and newness that Vietnamese Americans have brought to what it means to be American too. So when I say it's a gift to celebrate my identity, but it's also a gift. I want America to see Vietnamese as gifts too. And the 50th anniversary is like a wonderful time to do that.
That is amazing and absolutely beautiful, and completely close to what I know as my own experience too. And that's why it was such a joy to actually work on this project as well. And I'm glad it came to fruition, and I'm glad it will be out at the time of the anniversary, so that, as you say, there will be more narratives that we can point to, that doesn't end at the war and the legacy of America losing, like, because America also won all sorts of different things in having Vietnamese folks here. And you're welcome. Okay, so now we reached a point of final reflections. So after doing this whole educator fellowship, how do you think that's going to impact your teaching experience, if at all, or how you pull together teaching materials? Like what, short term, long term, however you want to approach this question.
Well, first of all, I got your phone number so I can text you whenever I need a crappy answer. But the main part is that the biggest takeaway in terms of teaching for me, honestly, is that I'm not alone in this effort to build a history and a curriculum that is really inclusive of beautiful stories across our state. That is so valuable. It feels so, it makes me feel so much lighter, so that alone is worth it. The other part of it is I've grown so much as a researcher, thanks to the help of you and the help of California Revealed. It's really leveled up my ability to research, and because of that, I am helping my students become better researchers. And let's talk about skills we need today, right? We have to navigate a world where information is at the tip of your finger. Like you can, before you even think it, there's an answer out there. And is that answer right? I don't know. I'm very concerned about and I'm not the only one, but I'm concerned about how information is received, and how do we know that information is good. And more than ever, we need members of our community. For democracy to thrive, we need good information. We need people who know how to find a primary source, because now even secondary sources we just can't fully trust. We have to go down back to the primary source, and it has to be authenticated, and it has to be something that we have the lens to interpret ourselves. So that thinking skill, like I got to exercise that throughout this year working with you. And I'm excited to continue to really show my students how I did it myself and use that to create lesson plans and help my students through that their thinking process as well. I also am going to be directing students to California Reveals and the other resources I learned, like Calisphere, and having them look at that for primary sources. So it's opened up that for me. I've just gotten so much from it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And really, truly, thank you, because you say you're directing folks there. And now when people go there, they'll have your source set to as their own anchor source and model for what an approach to inquiry could look like, that diversifies narratives, that asks hard-hitting questions about identity, and then also speaks to a underrepresented group of folks that are not often heard of in history. So thank you for that labor of love. Gift received. Thank you so much. Thank you for folks who tuned in with us. And I hope you check out the primary sources authored by the one and only Virginia Nguyen. Thank you.